Om Sadashiva Samarambham
Varam
Shankaracharya
Shankaracharya
Asmadacharya
Paryantam
Vande
Guru
Paramparam.
Om
Sahana Bhavatu
Sahanau
Sahana Bhunaktu Sahaviryam Karavavahai Tejasvinavadhitamastu Ma Vidvishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti.
Om Tat Sat. Om Namah Shivaya. Welcome to the class.
Om Namah Shivaya.
So, last class we were talking about the presentation by Duryodhana about the warriors in the other army, in the Pandava army. He was telling his commander-in-chief that these are the warriors. And in the 7th verse, he says, Asmakam Vashishtaha Tan Nibhodaha.
Bluetooth mode.
May you know who are the people in our army. That also I will tell you. So that is where we are
Device paired.
And we will now look at the next verse, which is verse number 8. So please unmute yourself and we can chant. Bhavan Bhishmascha Karnascha
Bhavan Bhishmascha Karnascha
Kripascha Samitinjayaha
Kripascha Saminjayah
Ashwathama Vikarnascha
Ashwathama Vikarnascha
Saumadattis Tathaivacha Okay, so in some books you may find that the last two words are different. So it can be that it also has Saumadat Jayadratacha. So that is also okay. But in this particular version which I am looking at, which is the version from the Giri agency, it is talking about Saumadat Tithaivacha. So is this mention of the other warriors is going on, and he is giving another list. And he starts with Bhavan. So Bhavan is not the name of a warrior. Bhavan is the equivalent of a very respectful aap. In Hindi, aap we say, aap. And when you are talking to a person who is very respected, you don't say you. So you just use the name. Instead of that, Bhavan means it's a title of respect, your honor, as if you are saying your honor. So Bhavan, you, the respected one. And who is this you? The person who is being addressed. Who is being addressed? Dronacharya. So why is he saying that? Because he's talking about the warriors in his army. Because he told already that I am going to give you a list of the people in my army, in our army. And Bhavan, that is the first name on the list. That you, Dronacharya, the most respected Acharya, the most powerful Acharya, you are the first person. Then who? Bhishmascha. Bhavan cha Bhishmaha and Bhishmaha. Then cha Karnaha and Karnaha. Kripa also. So these are the names. Bhavan is Dronacharya, then Bhishmacharya, then Karna, then Kripacharya. So Kripascha is Kripacharya. Then Samitinjaya. Samitinjaya is not a adjective, it's not a name. Okay, it's an adjective to Kripa. So Kripa Samitinjaya. Samitinjaya means the one who is always victorious. And therefore Kripa Samitinjaya, the one that Kripacharya who has always been victorious, who has never been defeated. So it's come from the word Samiti. Samiti means war, Yuddha. So Samiti Jayati Sarvataha iti Samitinjayaha. The one who has never been defeated. The one who has only seen Jaya, victory. Then the next line, Ashwathama, another great warrior. Then Vikarnaha, Vikarnaha is Duryodhana's brother. Then Saumadatti. So Saumadatti is a name of another warrior. Saumadatti, son of Somadatta. Somadatta has another name for those who are familiar with the Mahabharata, Bhurishrava. So Saumadatti. Then Tatha Eva Cha. So that word has to be broken correctly. Saumadatti, Tatha Eva Cha. Similar other people are there. So he's giving the names. Dronacharya, Bhishmacharya, Karnaha, Kripaha, Ashwathama, Vikarnaha, Saumadatti, and Tatha Evacha. Similar powerful warriors are there on our side also. So as I said earlier also, there's not much of explanation and all required here because simply a list is being given. Now let us chant the next verse, which is verse number 9. So please unmute yourself and we will chant. Anye cha bahava shuraha
अन्ये च बहवः शूराः
madharte tyakta jivitaha
मदर्थे जीविताः
nana shastra praharanaha
नानाशस्त्रप्रहरणाः
sarve yuddha visharadaha. Okay. So the first thing to be understood is that though many of the words sound very similar, and of course Hindi also has words which originated only in Sanskrit, but there is a use, because of the usage, sometimes the words will differ completely in meaning. For example, the word tu. Okay, tu in Hindi means what? You, right? But tu in Sanskrit means what?
But.
So these things one should remember so that one is not confused. Okay, so there are many such words I'll point out off and on, but just remember. Now look at this. Anye cha bahavaha. Now here it is written shura, but you may have noticed that I pronounced shuraha, which means there was a visarga. As I said earlier, visarga takes the pronunciation of the previous syllable, and therefore shura with a visarga becomes shuraha. So anye cha bahava shuraha madharte tyakta jivitaha and nana shastra praharanaha sarve yuddha visharadaha. So anye means others, not anyalok is other people. Cha is and. So that also is one word which you remember. Cha means and. Then bahavaha, coming from bahu, meaning many. So bahava means many people. Shuraha, warriors. And that is why bahavaha shuraha, because bahavaha had visarga, we also add visarga to suraha when we pronounce. So bahavaha shuraha, many warriors. Mad arthe, so that you break into mad arthe, my sake, mere liye. Mad arthe means mere liye. So artha here is used in that meaning of for me. Mad arthe, mama arthaha is called mad arthe, my, for my sake. Then look at the word tyakta jivitaha. So jivita tyaktaha, the person who has tyakta jivan, who has sacrificed his life. So what he is saying is all these people, they have given up their lives. So it's a very symbolic way of saying that they know that they are in the battle and they are willing to die for me. So tyakta jivita should not be taken as people who have already dead or already given up their lives. The literal meaning is those who have given up their lives. Tyakta jivitaha. But then we have to understand as people who have come here with the full understanding that their lives could be given up on the battlefield. For whom? Madarthe, for my sake. So they have come here ready to die for me. That is the meaning. Then nana shastra praharanaha. So nana means, what is the Hindi meaning for nana?
Variety.
Various.
Many
Many.
types. Different types.
Nana. That is here Nana means different types. It does not mean Nana Nani. Okay. So just remember, don't say that the grandfather is there. So it's Nana, many types, multiple. So Nana Vidhani, many types of. So you have to break this up into Shastram and Praharanam. Praharanam. Two types of things are there. There is Shastra and there is a Praharana. So if you're looking at that word correctly, it is Nana Shastraha and Nana Praharanaha. What are the meanings? We will come to that in the explanation. Just remember that Nana Shastra Praharanaha. So there are many types of weapons. Shastra is also a weapon and Praharana is also a weapon. What is the difference? We'll just talk about. Then Sarve is all. Yuddha Visharadaha. So Visharada means an expert. Yuddha Visharada means a person who is an expert in the art of warfare. So Anya cha Bahavaha Shuraha Madharte Tyakta Jivitaha Nana Shastra Praharanaha Sarve Yuddha Visharadaha. This is the meaning. Okay. Now let us look at individually. And in plain English, what it means is there are many, many powerful warriors who have assembled here, and with the understanding that they may die in the battle for my sake. And all these people have many weapons and they are all experts in war. The simple meaning of that particular verse. So here there are no names. Okay, here simple. You might say it's an adjective. The whole verse is an adjective to all the warriors, the names of all the warriors. All of those warriors fall in this category. They're all heroes. They're all ready to give up their lives for my sake. And they've got all different weapons and they're all experts in war. And so he says, now look at the individual words. Anye cha bahava shuraha. There are also many other powerful warriors. That's what he says. And who are they? And who are they? Madharte tyakta jivitaha. Out of their devotion to me, out of the respect for me, they have now given up their lives and joined this army. So given up their lives mean that they are ready to die for me. Remember that there were many kingdoms. We are not talking just about the Kaurava kingdom or the Pandava kingdom. In those days, there were many, many kingdoms, and all the kings of Bharatvarsha, the entire Bharatvarsha is supposed to have been involved in this Mahabharata battle, which is why it is called Mahabharata. Right? So all the kings divided themselves into two groups. Some joined the Pandavas, some joined the Kauravas. So interestingly, it's some kind of a mini world war at that time itself, right? And a very interesting usage of this word is what Madharte Tyakta Jivitaha. So there are some commentators who say that Duryodhana used these words. Remember, it is Duryodhana who is talking to Dronacharya. So some people say that Duryodhana used these words unconsciously, which means he already knew that he had lost the war and all these people were going to die. But that's one interpretation. You can take it like that. Or you can take it as saying, that they are all ready to die for me. But if you see what Krishna says in the 11th chapter, when the 11th chapter, whenever we reach there, long time, Krishna is trying to persuade Arjuna to join the battle. And Arjuna is reluctant. Why? Because he says, all these fellows in front of me in the other army, they are my own acharyas, they are my own gurus, they are my own elder people, they are my own relatives. So how can I kill them? So Krishna says, hey Arjuna, maye vetehi nihata purvameva. Maya, by me, ete means all these people, nihita purvameva. By me, these people have already been killed. Okay. If you connect those three words, these people are already dead, hey Arjuna, he says. And you connect Madharte Tyakta Jivataha, you can take the meaning that Duryodhana was aware that all these people, including he himself, would die in the battle, which means what? he knew that some sort of omen was there that he is going to lose the battle and be defeated. That is one interpretation. So either way, you can look at it. And then Nana Shastraha, and you have to break that word, as I said. Shastraha is one word, Praharana is another word. The Nana is an adjective for both the words, for both the nouns, and therefore Nana Shastra plus Nana Praharanaha. So Nana means many, many varieties of. Shastra is not Shastra, okay? So one more thing in Sanskrit, one little, Aka Matra can make all the difference. So Shastra is weapon, Shastra is what? Scripture. So Shastra, Nana Shastra, and Shastra means weapons which are held in the hand while you fight. So for example, a spear or a sword or a gadha, that big fat thing which Bhimsen used to fight with. All these things are Shastra. The difference between Shastra and a Praharana is Shastra does not leave the hand. It is held in the hand and fought. Praharana is, it leaves the hand. So the spear, which I said is Shastra, can also be classified as Praharana. Why?
Because sometimes you have to throw it to attack
Throw it.
a larger
Correct.
distance.
So if you are using the spear as a throwing weapon, then it is Praharanaha. If you are using it to fight with the holding it in the hand, then it's Shastraha. So spear is not a very good example. But the sword is definitely, talwar jo hai, definitely Shastraha. Gadha jo hai, definitely Shastraha. And what is the example of Praharanaha?
Bow and arrow.
Arrow.
Only the arrow, not the bow.
Sorry.
Okay, the
Arrow.
bow is held in the hand, but the arrow is a
Arrow.
Praharana. So the difference between the Shastram and the Praharanam is this only. And that's why he is saying all types of weapons, which includes those weapons which you have in the hand and fight, and those weapons which you discharge from your hand like arrows. So basically you're talking about arrows over here. So Praharana is Astram. Another name for Praharana is Astra. So Shastra, Astra. You can take Praharana to mean Astram and Shastram to mean which is held in the hand. So you can some places you might find the words used Shastra, Astra. Here Krishna says Shastra, Praharana. It's the same thing. Astra is that which leaves the hand. Shastra is that which you don't leave in there. Don't leave from there. You keep it in the hand only. And remember that in those days, if you've been reading the Mahabharata or seeing those they call TV serials, Astra has, the Praharana has a special power also. What is that? That you can invoke that particular Astra by a mantra. So there are mantras which are connected to some of the astras, and therefore each astra has a different name. So Brahmastra is one most powerful astra, Agni Astra is there, Pashupati Astra is there. These are all astras connected to particular devatas, which means the power of the devata is present in that astra, and therefore it doesn't become a normal arrow. It becomes a very, very powerful arrow, Praharanam, by chanting the mantras. So in those days, there were two types of praharanams or astras. One is the normal ones, which are used by the normal soldier, and one by the Maharathis, who have learned how to invoke the particular devata connected to the astram or the praharanam by chanting the mantra. That is why if you remember Ramayana, there is a scene where Rama takes a blade of grass. And what mantra does he, what devata does he invoke? Anybody remembers?
Shiva.
No.
Brahma.
He
Brahma.
invokes Lord Brahma. And therefore, that blade of grass becomes the most powerful arrow in the universe, astra in the universe, a Brahmastra. Only the invocation was necessary. Okay. So what is being said is that Sarve Yuddha Visharada. Visharada means expert. All these Visharada has to be understood as experts in warfare, meaning they know all these mantras. They are able to invoke all the very powerful mantras. And therefore, he's telling Dronacharya, don't worry. We also have as powerful, as strong warriors, as expert warriors as the Pandava side also has. Okay. This is the text meaning of this particular verse. Now we'll chant the 10th verse. So please unmute yourself. The 10th verse. Aparyaptam tadasmakam
पर्याप्तं तदस्माकं
balam bhishmabhirakshitam
बलं भीष्माभिरक्षितं
पर्याप्तं त्विदमेतेषाम्
पर्याप्तं
बलं भीमाभिरक्षितम्
बलं भीमाभिरक्षितं
Okay. So look at the words aparyaptam plus tad asmakam plus balam plus bhishma abhirakshitam plus bhishma plus abhirakshitam. So that word has to be split carefully. It's a sandhi. So bhishma plus abhirakshitam, the two small a's, bhishma plus abhi, that converts it into a big the long and therefore bhishma abhirakshitam. When you break the sandhi, it becomes bhishma abhirakshitam. So aparyaptam tad asmakam balam bhishma abhirakshitam paryaptam tu idam etesham. So today Pridam etesham has to be broken carefully into tu plus idam plus etesham. So the trick lies in understanding how to do the breakups. If sufficiently long, if you follow the discussions and the verses, you will be able to make it out without, even if you are not formally learning Sanskrit, you will be able to make it out. So Tvidam is the compound word that has to be broken into tu plus idam plus etesham. So now when you look at it, you can see how it works. Tu, that u plus e, the u of tu plus the e of idam becomes twi. So twi dam, that u and e converts into v, and therefore twi dam etesham. That's how the sandhi is. Then balam plus bhima plus abhirakshita. I'm just explaining it a little bit in detail because later on, as we go on, we'll not do so much of sandhi, but we should be able to make out how sandhi breakup is. Then look at the first word, aparyaptam. So it is fairly simple. What does paryaptam mean in Hindi?
Sufficient.
Sufficient.
Not enough.
Paryaptam means enough. Aparyaptam means not enough. Okay. And therefore, here it is mean that not sufficient. So he says aparyaptam, the army is not sufficient. Tad, others. Asmakam means hamara, ours. Balam. Now balam has to be understood carefully here. Balam is not strength. And so if you look at the context, what is he talking about? He's talking about the armies, and therefore balam here is army. So aparyaptam asmakam balam. Our army is not sufficient. That's what he's saying. Okay. Then Bhima or Bhishma, and the first line is Bhishma. Bhishma abhirakshita. So when you put them all together, aparyaptam tad asmakam balam Bhishma abhirakshitam. Okay. So Bhishma abhirakshitam is a compound word. Bhishmena abhirakshitam iti Bhishma abhirakshitam. Means that which is protected by Bhishma. Abhirakshitam means protected by, and Bhishma is the prefix. So Bhishma abhirakshitam means that which is protected by Bhishma, which is what? Tad balam, asmakam balam, our army. So he says our army is protected by Bhishma, Then paryaptam. Paryaptam means adequate. Tu is but, whereas then idam is this. Etesham means of all these people. Again, Balam is army. And Bhima Abhirakshitam. So we're talking about two armies. Bhishma Abhirakshitam is which army? Kaurava army. Bhima Abhirakshitam is which army? Pandava army. Okay, having got these words, now look at the sentences. You have to rearrange. Okay, now this rearrangement of these verses has a name, which we will do in most of the verses. So that name is called Anvaya. Anvaya means putting the, if you notice, and I said in the earlier class that you can put the words in any order because of the fact that in Sanskrit is not the correct order of prose. Subject, verb, object, that kind of order is not there in these verses. So when you convert it back into the prose order, that conversion is called Anvaya. So now this Anvaya here is Tad Asmakam Bhishma Abhirakshitam Balam Aparyaptam. So he says, our army protected by Bhishma cannot be or is not adequate. That is one way of understanding. Okay. And the second sentence is tu, but idam etesham balam, this army of people, Bhima Abhirakshitam, protected by Bhimsen, by Bhima, Paryaptam, is adequate. So that is one way of saying that our army protected by Bhishma is not adequate for what? To get victory. On the other hand, this army protected by Bhima, which is the Pandava army, is adequate, more than sufficient to defeat us. So the first, after having given a whole, list of people in the Pandava army and people in the Kaurava army, he looks at them again, and then he begins to have doubts. Is it possible that our army is not sufficient? Is it possible that I will be defeated? You have to connect that to, see, the entire verses to be understood. There's a saying actually that if you want to understand the Bhagavad Gita, if you want to understand even one verse, you will not be able to understand a single verse until you understand all the 700 verses. And therefore, to be able to connect verse to verse is very important. And this particular verse where he is saying that our army is not sufficient, where should you connect this to in the previous verses? Can you
The
guess?
first time when he says, look at their mighty army.
That is
The
one.
place where he, Acharya, the place where he says that the warriors will die.
Exactly.
Yes.
Madharte tyakta jivitaha.
Yeah,
That
lack
is-
of confidence it is showing.
It is showing lack of confidence. But if you connect it to the fact that he said these warriors, Madharte tyakta jivitaha, they all come here and they're all dead. Okay, so that you connect here. You can also connect it to the 11th chapter where Krishna says everybody is already dead. So all these connections you make, from here itself, the defeat is already certain. So he says Pandava's Sena is superior to us, Paryaptam. And the Kaurava Sena is Aparyaptam, it is inferior. So he is indicating that he is tremendously frightened. He's saying that this army of mine is not sufficient to defeat the Pandava army. Even though Bhishma Abhirakshitam, even though this Kaurava army, our army, is protected by Bhishma himself. And Bhishma is the most powerful warrior. Why is that? Because he has a particular boon. What is that boon?
He will not die.
Die without
He
Chamrit.
could
Not
wish
Ichamrita.
his own
He
death.
can die only when he wants to. He cannot be killed until he wants to die. And therefore, he is the most powerful warrior. And in spite of that, in spite of Bhishma Abhirakshitam, he is still feeling that the army is not sufficient. And the way etesham balam paryaptam, that Pandava army is more than sufficient to defeat me, he says. Even though Bhishma Abhirakshitam, it is only protected by Bhima only, not Bhishma. Bhima Abhirakshitam, only protected by Bhima, because Bhima is, of course, much, much inferior to Bhishma in terms of experience, in terms of capacity to fight. Bhishma is there's no comparison at all. Bhishma is a person who cannot be killed unless he wants to. Bhishma is a person with so much of experience, so much of wars he has won. And Bhima is young. Therefore, he says that this army of mine, even though protected by Bhishma, is not sufficient to avoid defeat from Pandava army, even though only Bhima is protecting that army. So it's a very important psychological point here. He is losing confidence. And if you look at it objectively, like if you look at the numbers, of course, are not there in Bhagavad Gita, but if you have read any detailed version of the Mahabharata, there are some versions where you get the numbers of the divisions and all that. And it's called a Akshauni. Akshauni means it's a division. And in those numbers, you will see that the Kaurava army had 11 Akshaunis and the Pandava army had only 7 Akshaunis. Akshokini. Akshokini it is called. Akshokini. So it's a division. Okay. So the Kauravas had 11 Akshokinis. The Pandavas had 7 Akshokinis. Okay. What is an Akshokini? Essentially, it's a division. And I'll tell you what numbers I remember from having read. So one Akshakani means a group of chariots, elephants, horses, and soldiers, foot soldiers. And in one Akshakini, according to the version which I read, the numbers might differ. One Akshakini consists of 21,870 chariots, 21,870 elephants, 3 times that number, 65,610 horses, and 1,09,350 soldiers. Okay, these are all just numbers coming from here and there, so don't get bogged down in that. What I'm saying is that 11 into this is the total strength of the Kaurava army, while the strength of the Pandava army is only 7 into this. And therefore, numerically, in terms of quantity alone, the Kaurava army is stronger. In terms of strength alone, you have warriors like Bhishma, who is immortal unless he wants to die. Your Dronacharya is on their side. Dronacharya was what? He was the Acharya of all the Pandavas.
Yeah.
Teacher for all the Pandavas. And the teacher knows all the weaknesses of a student because he has taught them. And therefore, in terms of understanding, Dronacharya could easily defeat every Pandava because he knew each weakness of each Pandava. Similarly, Karna, although it's not known at this stage to anybody, Karna is actually the eldest of the Pandavas. He has got the kavach given by his father Surya Devata, and therefore he cannot be defeated at all. So, in spite of these numbers and these kind of people, why is Duryodhana feeling, diffident? Why is he feeling non-confident? What is indicated? Sorry?
He may be thinking that he's not on the right path.
Exactly. What is being indicated here that dharma is lacking on the part of the Kauravas. And wherever dharma is lacking, bhakti is lacking. In such a place, inner confidence, inner strength will not be there. Dharma is not there on Duryodhana's side. And whoever violates dharma, he may become, materially well off, materially richer. But that confidence which is necessary from inside, the inner strength and inner confidence, that security of the strength of mind, that cannot come from an adharmic state of mind. So Duryodhana was not a bhakta. He never understood the value of Ishvara or the value of the Lord's grace. And that is why, if you remember the story, Arjuna and Duryodhana went to Lord Krishna. When? Before the war. Okay. The story says that Duryodhana sat at the head of that. When they went there, Lord Krishna was sleeping. Duryodhana went and sat at the head of Krishna, where Krishna's head was. And Arjuna, being humble, he sat at the legs of Lord Krishna. Okay, I hope you guys remember the story.
Yes.
Yes.
What happens when Lord Krishna wakes up? He first sees Arjuna. Right? But Duryodhana says that I came first. And I was sitting at the top of the head. And Krishna says, but I saw Arjuna first. You may have come first, but I saw Arjuna first. And then Krishna says that since two people are there, I have to make a choice. Right? Remember, Krishna was a king, so he had an army. So he gives a choice. He says that I have to divide. So I'm not going to divide the army into two. So what I'll do is I'll put the army on one side and I'll put myself on the other side. And you can choose either the army or you can choose me. That was the choice given. And of course, we all know that Duryodhana chose the army and Arjuna was very happy choosing Krishna. What does the story represent? That Krishna represents the Ishvara Anugraha, the spiritual strength, while Krishna's army represents the material strength. So in terms of life for us, there is always this choice. Do I want more wealth or do I want Ishvara Anugraha? This is a story coming out from this particular Arjuna, Krishna and Duryodhana story. So if you are a materialistic person, you will ignore Ishvara Anugraha and you will choose prosperity or money, just like Duryodhana chose the army. Okay, this is what is meant. All right. So any questions so far? Otherwise, we can go to the next verse.
Acharya ji, what is the meaning of why is tad here?
Where?
Uh,
Tad refers to
asmakam aparyaptam balam would
Tad
have
balam.
explained.
Tad balam is that army. Tad means that. Tat,
Acha, acha.
Tad balam, that army.
Okay. And Kripacharya is also a Brahmin, right? He's an Acharya. So, I mean, the other day we were discussing about Dronacharya having...
No. Even now, Acharya is a teacher. So, a teacher need not be a Brahmin only. Even the one who teaches
Astra
can be a Kshatriya and he'll still be called Acharya.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay. Now we look at verse number 11.
Sorry.
Yeah, go ahead.
Actually, so putting the soldiers, for example, Krishna knew that he has more power. I mean, the whatever side Krishna will be, they will win. So is like Krishna knew that Duryodhana is going to select army instead of him.
No, how did he know? He gave him the choice.
So in case, suppose he did choose Krishna and Pandava are already dharmic, Pandavas. So that time, like I was thinking, so Krishna is in the Kaurava side who are adharmi.
That's
and
a hypothetical
Pandava.
question, Manmohan.
Yes.
What's the point of saying had Krishna chosen? Had Arjuna chosen?
I mean, it's such a silly.
It doesn't. That question is hypothetical, and what
Yes,
it
yes.
indicates is that the person who's materially oriented will always choose money or the army.
That is what I was thinking. Maybe Krishna knew it early. I mean, he could guess. Yes. Okay.
If you
Okay,
are saying
sorry.
that Krishna is all knowing, yes, he's the avatar, he's all knowing. But
Yeah.
still he gave the choice. So
Yeah.
that is another part of the story, that the Lord cannot make a choice for you. It is you alone who make the choice, always. And that is why we say the law of karma is not fatalistic. Because whatever circumstances are there before you, you always have a choice. You can never say that Bhagwan ne bola isliye maine kiya. Bhagwan will never tell you to choose. He presents the choices before you. This is what is indicated here.
But that choice is also because of my karma only. So basically, it's not a
No,
choice.
that is not
No,
true.
no, no.
That is not
That
true
is
at
not
all.
true.
The moment you say that, you are converting the whole thing into a fatalistic thing,
Okay.
that this has to happen.
Yes.
That takes away the very purpose of Shastra. Because if you are saying that all your actions throughout your life are driven by your karma only, prarabdha karma only, then you have reduced yourself to an animal.
Yes, yes.
Because it is the animal whose activities are driven solely by karma.
Partially, I
Instinct.
have the
For
choice.
the individual, there's always a choice. And therefore, the success of any action is dependent on two things, the prarabdha karma and the individual choice.
Individual.
Always
Yeah.
remember that. Never accept the theory that the law of karma is fatalistic, because it is not.
Mhm. Okay, thank you.
Right. So we go to verse number 11. We'll, of course, in due course, we'll be discussing law of karma in much more detail. There, of course, you will have the various different aspects of the law of karma. Okay, we look at verse number 11. Please chant with me. Ayeneshu cha sarveshu
Aineshu sarveshu
yatha bhagam avasthitaha bhishmam eva bhirakshantu bhavanta sarva eva hi. So, ayaneshu cha sarveshu, then yatha bhagam avasthitaha. Then that bhishmam eva bhirakshantu has to be broken. Bhishmam plus eva plus abhirakshantu. So again you can see eva ends with a, abhirakshantu begins with a. So a plus a is eva abhirakshantu. Simple sandhi. Bhishmam eva abhirakshantu bhavantaha sarve eva hi. So ayaneshu. The prefix shu indicates in, usme. So ayaneshu, in the ayanaha. What is ayanaha? It is another name for army. Ayanam is a army, is a balam. Say two or three different names have been used. So ayaneshu, in that army, cha, and sarveshu, all. So remember that these case endings have to be matching to each other. That is why ayaneshu, sarveshu. Then yatha bhagam. So bhagam normally means what?
Division.
Part. So, bhagam is a part. Okay, but in this case, bhagam is a place. So everywhere the words have to be understood correctly. Yatha bhagam means in the particular place. Yatha means respective. So yatha bhagam. Then bhishmam, that is bhishma, eva, alone. Abhirakshantu, protect. Bhavantaha, bhavantaha is you. Who is this you? Dronacharya. Bhavan. So he's addressing him as Bhavantaha. Therefore, you, hey Dronacharya. Sarve is all. He. He is a word in Sanskrit meaning indeed. He. Indeed is equal to eva. Eva, he, all these words are used, interchangeably. So they all have different meanings depending upon the context, and that is the problem with Sanskrit. Unlike English, the word itself has no absolute meaning. It is always taken from the context. Now let us do the anvaya, the arrangement, and then see. So first sentence can be Sarve bhavantaha bhishmam eva abhirakshantu. So Sarve bhavantaha bhishmam eva. May you all. Bhavanta is you, and therefore Sarve bhavanta, you including Dronacharya, may you all abhirakshantu, protect Bhishmam eva, Bhishma alone. Why? Because Bhishma is the. Why is he saying that you protect Bhishma alone?
Because Bhishma has the It's a mrityu thing. So as long as he needs to be protected.
That's not the meaning here.
No.
No?
If he is Ichamrityu, why does he need to be protected? In the chess game, who is protected?
The
The
queen.
king?
Why?
The king.
The queen.
The queen.
Queen is not
Queen.
protected. No.
King is protected.
It is the king which is protected.
Chief of the army.
Yes. Yeah, Bhishma was the chief of the army and therefore he should be protected. Dronacharya, even though he is being addressed by Duryodhana, remember, Dronacharya was not the chief of the army at this time. The first chief of army was Bhishma only. Senapati was Bhishma at that point of time. So he says, Bhishma should not lose, because if Bhishma loses, then the army has lost. Just like when the king loses, the entire board is gone. And therefore he says, Sarve Bhavantaha Bhishmam Eva Abhirakshantu. You should all protect Bhishma only. And Bhavantaha, you, who are these yous? Ayaneshu Sarveshu Yatha Bhagam Avasthitaha. Though he is addressing Dronacharya, this you is a plural you, saying that all of you who are Yatha Bhagam Avasthitaha, who are standing in all your respective places. Because there is an army formation, and in the formation, each warrior has a particular place. Therefore, Yatha Bhagam Avasthita means all of you standing in the respective places where you are supposed to stand. What should you do? All of you should very closely protect Bhishma alone. Because Bhishma is the Senapati, and as long as Senapati is fighting, the army will have morale and they will fight. So if the other interpretation here is that if Ishvara Anugraha is not with you, then nothing you have will ever give you security. You will never feel secure if the Lord's grace is not with you. And therefore, Duryodhana says, Asmakam Balam Aparyaptam. This army of mine, even though it is almost double the size of Pandava army, and headed by an invincible warrior, not invisible, okay, invincible warrior like Bhishma, who has got Ichha Mrityu Vardhan, in spite of that, I feel insecure. And Bhishma realizes that because of Bhishma is hearing all this, okay, because Bhishma and Dronacharya are standing close to each other, and even though Duryodhana is talking to Dronacharya, Bhishma is listening, and Bhishma, being a sensible warrior, he understands that Duryodhana is frightened, and a frightened prince or a frightened king is of no use to him, and therefore he wants to reassure Duryodhana that no, don't worry, we will win. And therefore he lets out a battle cry. The next verse gives the description of that battle cry. So we will chant the next verse. Tasya Sanjanayanam Harsham Guru Vriddha Pitamaha. Remember the chanting rule that the Visarga should be followed when followed by a pa. What should the Visarga be pronounced as?
Pa.
Therefore, Guru Vriddha Pitamaha.
Guru Vriddha Pitamaha.
Because it is pronounced by pa varga, the Visarga turns into pa. Fa. That has to be clearly remembered in all chanting. Tasya Sanjanayan Harsha.
Sanjaya
Guru
Rasha.
Guru Vriddha
Simhanadam Vinadochaihi. Shankam Dadmau Pratapavan. So here you are seeing the different words, how they are pronounced. Simhanadam is fine. Now Vinodya, that is a dha and a ya. It is not Vinodho. I heard some people saying Vinodho chai. It is Vinodhyau. It is a half the plus a ya. So Vinodhyau. Vinodyo. Okay. And then cha is a half cha and a full cha with a double matra I. And because it is I ka matra, the last pronunciation is what? Vinodyau chai. And therefore, the Visarga takes what form? He. And therefore, Simhanadam Vinodyo Chaihi Shankam. Shankam is fine. Dad Mau. Don't say, as I heard somebody say, Dadamau. It is Dad Mau. Half the Dad Mau Pratapavan. So all these become very important in chanting, because when you are chanting, if you say Dadamau, you are pronouncing an extra syllable, and that will break the meter completely. So when you learn to chant, if you're going for chanting class, you will notice that the words are used very carefully to conform with the Anushtup Chanda. And if you lengthen the word by using the full word when there's a half word, then you'll find that the meter will break, the Chanda will be wrong. Okay. Anyway, that's only for chanting class. I hope all of you are coming to chanting class, because I don't see so many people there. In chanting class, the maximum I've seen is 20-25. And I cannot repeat enough times the importance there, because otherwise, as you are studying, you will forget each verse as you finish, right? Because this is a long-term course, and though we are doing very fast now because it's first chapter, and first chapter doesn't take too long because mostly no philosophy is there at all. It's only a story being related. But even here, you will find that you will not be able to remember the names or the verse itself. And when it comes to later chapters, the teaching itself you won't remember. You might remember what has been said, but what are the words relating to what it has been said? That is very difficult to remember unless you are chanting regularly. So even if you are not able to attend the chanting class,
When it is?
chanting classes are on
Mondays and Thursdays.
Monday evenings,
And
Thursday evenings, Saturday mornings.
And also Vishnu Sahasranam on Wednesday morning.
Vishnu Sahasranam on Wednesday morning. Okay, so Neetu, you're not in chanting class, is it?
I'm not in that group. You can add.
I'll add you to the group. No problem. Okay. So now look at the words. Tasya Sanjanayan. Tasya. That second word has to be broken. Tasya Sanjanayan plus Harsham. Plus Harsham. I'll request you not to repeat my words because it's disturbing the others. If you want to repeat, you should probably mute your mic. So Tasya Sanjanayan Harsham Kuru Vraddaha Kuru Vriddaha. So there is a half the and a full the. Kuru Vriddaha Pita Mahaha. Then Simhanadam plus Vinadya. So that word Vinodyo Chaihi has to be broken into Vinadya. That is Vinad, half the plus ya. So Vinadya plus Uchaihi. U, half cha, full cha, Aiki matra, double matra, plus Visarga. Uchaihi plus Shankam plus Dadmau plus Pratapavan. So Tasya means Uska. His. Okay. His means Duryodhana's. Sanjanayan. Sanjanayan means producing. That which produces. From the dhatu jan, to be born, to produce. So Sanjanayan, producing. Harsham. Harsha, of course, you all know, is what? Joy. Then Kuru Vriddaha. So Vriddaha means older or elder. Kuru Vriddaha, because of the Visarga over there, Vriddaha, it refers to a person, it becomes a subject. The Visarga becomes the first case, Pratama Vibhakti. Kuru Vriddaha means the eldest of the Kuru family. Who is who? Who is the eldest?
Bhishma Pitama.
Bhishma Pitama.
And therefore it says Kuru Vriddaha Pitamaha. So Kuru Vriddaha Pitamaha, the grandfather, who is the eldest of the Kuru family. What do you do? Simhanadam. Simhanadam is the Simhanadam is the cry of a lion. Simhanadam. Okay, Nada means sound. Simha means lion. Simhanadam is the roar of a lion. Vinadya. So Vinadya means to shout loudly or to roar. And since he's talking about Simhanadam, it has to be taken as he roared like a lion. Who roared like a lion? Not
Bhishma Pitamaha.
Yes, not R-O-D.
Bhishma Pitamaha.
Yeah, so it's roared, not road. Okay, not R-O-D. R-O-A-R-E-D. Roared, shouted out like a lion. And Uchchai. Uchchai means jor se, loudly he said. What did he do? Uchchai. Shankham, the shell, the conch. Dadmau. Dadmau means to blow. Shankham, Dadmau, Uchchaihi. Loudly blew the conch. Pratapavan. जिसका प्रताप है. What is pratap? Hindi में?
Aishwarya.
Who is
Glory.
Glory. Who is glorious? Pratapavan, the one who is glorious.
Sage.
Okay. So the one who has a lot of pratapa, a lot of glory, that person is Pratapavan. All right. Now let us look at the words. So the first sentence will be Pratapavan Shankham Uchchaihi Dadmau. That person who is glorious, who is who? Pratapavan. He blew the conch loudly. Shankham Uchchai Dadmau. He blew his conch loudly. And what is it Pratapavan is now described. Kuruvriddaha pitamaha tasya harsham sanjanayan. So this Pratapavan is Kuruvridda Pitamaha, is the eldest of the Kurus, who is Pitamaha, Bhishma, and Tasya Harsham Sanjanayan, the one who is producing joy for Harsham Sanjanayan. He is producing joy for whom? For Duryodhana. How does he produce that joy? Simhanadam Vinadya, roaring the cry of a lion. Okay. So Duryodhana Uvacha, that Duryodhana's talk, lecture started from the verse number 3 and ended at verse number 11. And now Sanjaya Uvacha it is there. This is no longer Duryodhana talking. It's obvious, right? It is no longer Duryodhana talking because, and if Duryodhana is not talking, then who is talking? Sanjaya is talking, though Sanjaya Uvacha is not there. Therefore here, verse number 12, it is Sanjaya Uvacha. Sanjaya is saying, what is Sanjay saying? That Bhishma saw Duryodhana frightened. And Bhishma understands that this fellow is frightened. So Tasya Sanjanayan. He wants to generate enthusiasm in Duryodhana. So this Kuruvridda Pitamaha, Bhishmacharya, eldest among the Kauravas, he knows that Duryodhana is frightened. And therefore he wants to create confidence in the mind of Duryodhana. So what does he do? Uchchaihi Simhanadam Vinadya. He roared out loudly like a lion, made a big noise, and Pratapavan, the powerful, the glorious Bhishma, what did he do? After shouting like a lion, Shankam Dadmau, he blew the conch. And remember, in the old days, the blowing of the conch signified what? The start of the battle. And therefore, Bhishma did not want the battle to be delayed, because he knew that the more the battle was delayed, the more Duryodhana would get frightened. The more butterflies there would be in his stomach. And therefore he said, let us start to fight. And therefore he roared like a lion and then blew the conch, which means let the battle start. But again, remember that for the battle to start, it is not enough. The Rananiti of those days was that both the commanders in chief have to blow their conches. Then only the battle can start. So right now it is only Bhishma has blown the conch. In the next few verses, they talk about different people blowing the conches. So with this, we'll stop here. Any questions we can answer. Again, remember, it's only a story. Yeah.
Please explain the second word again. Sanjana.
Sanjanayan means to generate confidence. Harsham. Sanjanayan Harsham. Harsham is taken as pleasure or joy. But in the battlefield context, there is no great, advantage in Duryodhana becoming joyful. What he needs is confidence. And therefore, to give him confidence, what does Bhishma do? He roars like a lion and he blows the conch.
Thank you.
So we'll stop here. Any more questions? Otherwise, we can close for the day. Remember, this is just a description. There's not much of philosophy, so we can go pretty fast.
Can you break it? Sanjay, Nayan, Harsham, like meaning I'm not able to understand. Like Nayan, Harsham, like
Nayan
break-
is not eyes. Sanjay.
Yeah, that's what.
Nayan is not eyes. Sanjay Nayan.
Sanjay Nayan.
It's to produce. You want the breakup? You can
Okay.
get the breakup only if you understand Sanskrit.
Okay.
So Sanjay Nayan can be given. Sanjay Nayan basically means it comes from the dhatus jan. Jan means to be born, and
Okay.
there's something called shatra, the one who is doing. So that shatra san there's something called causative formation. So sam plus jan plus shatra is Sanjay Nayan, the one who is producing.
Okay.
So that's a very unsatisfactory explanation.
So in a way, he's cheering up Duryodhana.
Producing.
In
producing.
simple words, he's saying,
Producing.
I'm going to cheer you up. That is the long and short of all this.
So,
He
sir,
wants
this word has nothing to do with Sanjaya.
nothing to do with Sanjay. It is
He
some,
got
some plus jan. Some plus jan plus shatra. Anyway, that's, unless Sanskrit is known, which I also am not very familiar with, okay? Little bit here and there I know, but if you really want a complete breakup of this, you should be knowing complete Sanskrit grammar. And that we are not doing in this class because the majority of people do not know Sanskrit grammar, including me, okay? So let us not get into that much of description. Upar ka jo bhi hai, I will tell you. But if you want the traditional way of study, then you have to study Shankara Bhashyam. And then for that, Sanskrit has to be known very, very thoroughly. Shankara Bhashyam we will do, but several years from now on. If Prarabdha has it that I am alive and you are alive, then we can do. Okay, any question? Otherwise, we will stop for the day. Om Purnamadav Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnam Eva Vasishyate Om Shanti 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 Om Tat Sat Om Namah Shivaya. Thank you for your
Namah
patience.
Shivaya.
Namah Shivaya.
Have a great weekend, guys.
Thank you.
Om
Thank you.
Om